Still not sure what I am.
What is up, guys? Chunky back here on my channel. I'm finally in front of camera. It's been so long. I had to do it. I've been experimenting with a lot of, editing styles and stuff, so I haven't been in front of the camera. It's good to be back. Now, with that being said, I'm also back for a TV review. I said I would be doing my Luke Cage review, so here it is. With that being said, let's get straight into it, guys. There's no denying that Luke Cage is a more interesting iteration in this Marvel, cinematic universe. I really like what Marvel do with their TV shows. They're much more grounded. They're much more adult. I appreciate the narrative a bit more. They're much more fleshed out than the films. Yeah, they got 13 episodes to do all this stuff, but fleshed out nonetheless. And I've got to say, when looking at Marvel vs DC TV, I feel like Marvel's really starting to own it. I do like DC shows like Arrow and The Flash, but they're much more hokey compared to the more grounded feel that Marvel's going for. And I also appreciate that because it allows the story to go to much deeper places. It doesn't really hold back much. And I've got to say, guys, I loved this show. This show impressed me once again, coming off the back of Jessica Jones. I can't say much more. I binged through this show in about 3 days. It was very entertaining. Now, hear me out. From this point forward, I'm not going to really go into spoilers. I want to talk about the experience as a whole. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I also want to try and explain as much as possible. So there might be very slight spoilers if you guys are really that, keen about spoilers. But then again, I'm not going to be really going into deep plot points and stuff like that. So before I get into any of the characters, any of the plot points, things that I liked and didn't like, I'm going to start with the overall narrative and how drenched in culture it is. Now, without being racist or anything like that, I do want to get this point across that it's set in Harlem. It's an overwhelmingly black culture, and in saying that, it's given a lot of respect. The soundtrack, a lot of jazz, a lot of rap music, a lot of homage to all these black artists that have come out of Harlem and through Harlem, and it's just drenched in this culture of the past, of the present, and where Harlem is going, as a city. And the narrative plays around that with a lot of the characters that are trying to make this city better, and you really feel for Luke Cage because it's not that he loves this city in particular, but he feels very linked to it in some way because it's in some ways it's as hard and beaten down as he is. So he feels this connection and he feels this obligation to really, pull it out of the shit. And it's so merged with the culture. And like I said, the soundtrack's great. The clubs and the appearance of the city is great. You really get a feel for it. You really feel like it is dark and dingy as well as corrupt, but it has a strong foundation in its past and its history, and you really feel that. As far as the characters go, Luke Cage is actually a great main character. I haven't seen much of him in comics and books and stuff. I'm not really into Luke Cage. I didn't really know who Luke Cage was even before Jessica Jones until I really started to investigate, his origin story and stuff like that before the show came around. But then again, when the show does come around, his origin story is explained. It does flash back to how he became Luke Cage, how he got his abilities, stuff like that, which I really appreciated because if you've never seen Luke Cage, you've never seen any comics, you don't know who he is, you're kind of not left in the dust, and that's how, these shows should be treated, and they kind of are in that sense, but I really appreciated the origin story. Another character I really appreciated was Misty Knight. She's a detective. She gets involved with Luke Cage early on in the series, but she kind of really evolves throughout the series. She's a really determined detective. She wants to get to the bottom of this. She understands that Luke Cage is involved in some way, and you see a perception of Luke change. He's a criminal to he might be okay to, he's really trying to save this city that's got on his side. I really appreciate that, that development throughout the series, and it's good that they're taking these female characters and actually making them strong, independent leads. I also appreciate that too. Now, a character that I had a problem with was Cottonmouth. He's more or less the main villain of the show. There is another villain which I won't really go into. His name is Diamondback. I didn't have a problem with him per se, but Cottonmouth I had a problem with because I felt like he didn't really do his justice on screen. He could have done so much more. He wasn't really intimidating. You got the feeling that Luke Cage could have just belted him anyway. He kind of resorted to stupid ways of going about things. I just feel like he didn't get the job done, and there was a bit more of Cottonmouth to be fleshed out. They do go into his origin, and they do explain why he is the way he is and why he has chosen this life, but I just didn't really feel it. I felt like he had more to give. I wanted to be intimidated by this character, especially coming off a series like Jessica Jones, where a character like Kilgrave, I'm genuinely scared of. You understand that his abilities could really wreak havoc. I didn't really feel like Cottonmouth had that ability. I felt like he was always under the thumb of something else or someone else, and it just wasn't really doing it for me. Overall, speaking of problems, a couple of problems I did have was the narrative does jump back and forth a bit too much. There are a couple episodes that are dedicated like I said before, to Luke Cage's origin story, and I appreciated that. But over this course of 13 episodes, it gets a bit convoluted, especially when you're trying to focus on one character and one scene. It jumps back when you really don't want it to. It ruins the flow of things just a touch. But in saying that, it's also doing service to the origin stories of multiple characters, how the city is the way it is, and why the characters have these connections to each other from a past that we get to see before the show takes place. There is that, but it's a bit too much in some places. It does get a bit hokey towards the end. The villain gets some kind of super suit to match Luke Cage's powers. That's all I'm going to say, but it's not really explained how he got the suit or who gave him the suit. Unless I missed it, I didn't really get that kind of vibe. And when it's going for a more realistic tone, you see a guy in a super suit with a helmet, and it just seems really far removed from the tone that it's trying to set for, you know, the past 12 episodes of full realism, and you just get this one episode where it's literally torn from the pages of a comic book, you know, and the kind of the vibe's a bit mixed up there. But in saying that, guys, all in all, I binged through this show in about 3 days. That kind of says all it needs to say. You know, the narrative, while it's disjointed, it does a good job of building the pace. You are interested in the characters and where they're going and what they're doing, and the story does keep on track enough for you to be interested. Like I said, it does prove an origin story to Luke Cage. While this does take place after Jessica Jones, if you do watch Jessica Jones, you've got a bit more context. But in saying that, this show is easily watched by itself. You will grasp the context, you'll grasp the narrative, and you'll be invested in these characters through the course of 13 episodes. As a comic book fan, as a Marvel fan, as a superhero fan, I am going to say this is a must watch, just because all the positives really outweigh the negatives. The negatives are only minor. It didn't really take away from the fact that I was binge watching this show. I wanted to progress. I wanted to see what was going on in the next episode. And for that reason, guys, this is one of the better shows on TV. As far as the Marvel series go, I don't think it's up there with the caliber of Jessica Jones and Daredevil, but only by a smidge. This is still a must watch. Go watch this, guys. If you enjoyed Daredevil, if you enjoyed Jessica Jones, you're going to enjoy Luke Cage. That's it from me, guys. If you liked the video, maybe give it a like, subscribe to my channel, leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you've seen Luke Cage, what do you think? Let me know. This has been Chunky, guys. It's been great to get in front of camera and talk to you guys again. I hope to see you soon on Chunky's Reviews. Catch you later.